At the idea of swimming, Jessica's heart melted. She should have stayed in her position of anger, but she wanted to learn to swim, and Kelly's proposition seemed like the only opportunity ever. Her mother found no time to teach, and neither did she trust any instructor enough to leave her with them. If she learned to swim properly with the help of Kelly, the nanny, she would forgive the atrocities of the woman through the weekend. She didn't blame Kelly. She blamed her mother for hiring someone she didn't know so well despite her protectiveness. A business conference took Jessica's mother, Lisa, out of town. Jessica supposed her mother wouldn't leave her alone in the house and hoped she would spend the weekend at her grandmother's home. But she dismissed the feasibility when her mother informed her that her grandmother had the flu. "Who will stay with me instead?" Jessica asked her mother, who stood at the door with her box in hand, ready to leave. "Oh, I'm sorry, honey. I forgot to tell you, but I have hired a nanny." "A nanny?" Jessica said. Her mother had never hired a nanny before. She either went to her grandmother's, her mother canceled the trip, or whatever held her back from home. "That's a first, Mom. Do you know her?" "No, but someone recommended her. We have spoken, too, and she seems to be a great lady. I'm sure you guys will have a swell time." "But—" "No buts, Jess. I'll be back in the next 2 days, and you can have me to yourself all you want. Remember to call me in an emergency, and be good to your nanny," her mother said, and the sound of the doorbell interrupted the conversation between Jessica and her mother. Her mother opened the door to reveal a chubby-looking lady in thick glasses. Jessica remembered one of her classmates who dressed similarly to the nanny. Her friends called the girl a nerd or thick-eyed. Jessica never joined the name-calling, but somewhere in her heart, she wished to call the woman in front of her wide eyes. The woman introduced herself to Jessica's mother, and a conversation that suggested they had known each other for quite a while ensued between them. Jessica cleared her throat before they stopped the ongoing chat, and her mother introduced her to the nanny, Kelly. She smiled at Jessica when she took her hands in a firm shake, and Jessica smiled back. Her mother looked at the watch on her wrist, and didn't hide her alarm about how much time she had lost in the introductions. She told Kelly about the abundance of food in the refrigerator and all that she had stocked for the weekend. She also told her to take good care of her daughter, and after Kelly faced Jessica to tell her about baking and cooking, her mother smiled at them, waved, and left. The rest of the morning continued in good grace. Together, Kelly and Jessica entered the kitchen and prepared breakfast and some lunch. They watched the television, and Kelly didn't turn the channel to anything offensive for a 10-year-old like Jessica. Jessica forgot all about missing her mother, but that lasted until she dozed off on the chair and woke up to Kelly laughing through a phone call. Jessica didn't open her eyes, but knew the television had gone off. The shrill laughter she heard a few inches away from the chair she lay on caused her insides to ripple. She recognized the voice as Kelly's, but the words contradicted the kind of person she ought to be, the kind of person Jessica's mother thought her to be. Jessica heard her tell someone over the phone that the venue for the party was in place, and their arrival marked the commencement. Jessica doubted she talked about their house, but the person Kelly spoke to over the phone must have asked for directions to the venue, because in her following words, she rattled off the address to the house. Jessica clung to the pillow on the chair, oblivious of the next action to take. Deciding on a resolve, she sprang up from the sofa and challenged Kelly. She asked what she meant about the party, and if she planned to leave her alone by herself in the house. Kelly laughed and told her that the party would take place in the house, and Jessica had nothing to worry about. The thought of a party in her mother's house irked her, and she screamed at Kelly to write off the reviews of a party in a place that contained a minor. Kelly told her to mind her business and sent her to her room. Jessica would have refused if Kelly didn't threaten to burn her hand with the stove if she had kept up with the noise. Jessica couldn't understand how a person could change in such a little time, but as she climbed the stairs leading to her room, she understood that Kelly didn't change quickly. Kelly only pretended to be who she wasn't. Jessica didn't know how long she was in the room, but sometimes later, she heard the sound of voices. She couldn't tell their genders since her mother had once told her not to assume because people considered it offensive, but she heard voices that sounded like males and females. She remained curled up in bed as fear crept into her skin at the thought of strangers occupying their house. She had never felt more insecure and open to danger all her life, not even in the little moments when she stayed home before her mother arrived from work. Some moments later, music filled the air, and the house vibrated. Not knowing how much time had elapsed, Jessica got tempted to at least see who and how many people Kelly brought into the house. She needed to know those pieces of information and figure out how to reach her mother. At that moment, she remembered the phone her mother had left behind, and an idea struck her. She thought about filming the people in the house and sending the video to her mother as evidence of what Kelly did in her absence. She stole out of her room with the phone in her hand. She crept down the stairs and found a spot between the kitchen cabinet. She steadied herself and the camera and captured every soul dancing in the sitting room and making merry. The video captured everyone perfectly, and Jessica had time to count them. There were 6 in total, 2 tentative males and 4 tentative females, Kelly inclusive. Jessica wondered for a while if Kelly approached her mother to gain access to their soundproof house for a home party. Since home parties had been banned in their small town, people made inquiries and requests to her mother, pleading to use their house as a venue for home parties. No one could catch them, and no one could ever tell that a party went on in the house. Jessica's plan worked, but she forgot one thing. She failed to turn off the flashlight that emanated from the use of the back camera. The party freaks soon noticed the trace of white light, and Kelly came at her in the kitchen before she could see. Once she did, she flew out of the house through the back door with the phone in her hand. She called her mother's number as she ran and prayed with all her heart that her mother picked the call before Kelly caught up with her. Her mother did pick up the call. She relaxed to talk to her, but as soon as she said, "Hello," Kelly showed up beside her and shoved the phone out of her hands with calculated carefulness. Jessica shivered in her stance. She watched Kelly sputter some lies to her mother over the phone. She didn't hear her mother's response, but Jessica supposed her mother was worried because Kelly told her that Jessica was acting up only because she missed her mother and couldn't wait to see her again. Jessica got even more scared when Kelly promised to watch over her and take care of her. This time, Jessica knew that Kelly's words were nothing but lies, but her mother didn't know. The call with her mother ended, and Kelly turned on her. Kelly looked scary without her thick eyeglasses and skimpy clothes, and Jessica wondered what her friends saw in her. She would have continued to wonder if Kelly didn't ask her if she had ever gone to prison. Jessica only stared back at her, wondering why she asked that question. "I've been to prison before," Kelly confessed, "but that's none of your business," she continued. "There is only one lesson I need you to learn. You see," once she started, she gripped Jessica by her arm and dragged her towards the house. "When I first got to prison, the ones with whom I shared a cell didn't like me. No one likes anyone in prison. That's some advice." She looked Jessica in the eyes as she said that. They neared the basement of the house, and Jessica felt her heart tearing at its ribcage. She knew it would fly off if she gave her heart a choice. "So my cellmates liaised and beat me up. Here's the twist. Whenever there is a fight in a cell, or someone breaks any of the prison rules, the person is sent to solitary confinement." "What is solitary confinement?" Jessica asked as they stopped in front of the door leading to a small closet in the house's basement. "Oh, you're about to experience it yourself, Jess. And here's a little clue. How you're grounded and asked to stay in your room and do nothing for the rest of the day or week, or how long your punishment lasts? It's the same thing. With solitary confinement, you are separated from the crowd to stop you from making trouble. And you are locked up in a different cell. Have fun," she said, opening the door to the closet and shoved Jessica into the tiny room. Jessica screamed at the horror Kelly threw her into. The room didn't have windows, so they remained dark. She crunched down to her knees after banging on the door multiple times and coming to terms with the fact that Kelly wouldn't return for her. She allowed tears to fall from her eyes as her thoughts shifted to her mother. She wished her mother didn't leave her with a stranger who brought a bunch of other strangers to hosting a party in a house that didn't belong to her. Jessica wished her mother would sense something wasn't right, and she would show up. She cried and cried until she fell asleep. She woke up an hour later with a banging head and looked around in confusion. The darkness in the room struck fear in her again, and she called for her mother before she remembered that Kelly had locked her up there as a punishment. Her legs hurt from how she bent, and her joints ached her, but having no other way to stretch, she remained in the painful position until the door to the closet opened. Light rushed into the room, and her eyes caused a temporary form of blindness. "You should come out now. Your mom will be back soon," Kelly said. Her thick glasses covered her face again, and the makeup she had on the day before was gone. "My friends have gone, and the house is peaceful. Come out!" She stretched her hands and helped Jessica to her feet. Jessica summoned the strength left in her and looked Kelly in the eye. She promised to report every bit of her action to her mother and make sure that her mother sent her to prison again. Kelly smiled at Jessica, and anger stirred inside Jessica. She wished she was older and could do something about how the older woman bullied her. Kelly threatened that Jessica couldn't report to her mother because it would be Kelly's word against hers, and her mother was bound to believe the older woman since she was in charge. Kelly, however, said that Jessica could benefit from the transaction if she chose silence in exchange for swimming lessons. And at the idea of swimming, Jessica's heart melted. The woman helped her from the closet back to her room. They searched for the swimming suit her mother bought her when she decided to find an instructor for Jessica, one she was yet to see. They made breakfast since it was morning, although Kelly told Jessica to relax and watch only since she needed the list recuperating from her solitary confinement. After making some snacks to take along to the pool, they ate breakfast and set out to the swimming pool. Jessica changed into her swimsuit, but Kelly claimed she didn't need one since she would be giving commands and lessons outside the pool. For a while, Jessica almost started to like the woman again, but she found it impossible to forget the wickedness she did by pretending to be who she wasn't. But Jessica didn't let the thoughts stay. She remembered her mother had said that to get the best from a person, you have to like that person for that moment. A little while later, Kelly told Jessica to check the warmth of the water in the pool. With her thumping heart and excited feet, she ran towards the pool and put her left toe in it. The warmth trickled her foot, and she turned back to tell Kelly that the water was warm. Kelly told her to try dipping her hands into the water because those proved a faster way to confirm the warmth of the water. Jessica bent down as instructed and cast both her hands into the water. Her fingers danced in the feel of the water, and the excitement in her heart danced through her entire body. But some moment later, not only Jessica's fingers were in the water, someone had pushed her in. She struggled and fought with the water. She saw Kelly laugh and walk away from the pool. "Next time, you won't threaten to report me to your mother," she said as she walked away. Jessica kicked hard at the water and tried to find her way up, but nothing worked. She couldn't get the principle. She felt herself go lower and lower. The water choked her, and when she opened her mouth to ask for help, water filled her lungs. Her eyes hurt from the pressure of the water and her struggle. Her thoughts strayed to her mother, and suddenly, she understood why her mother didn't want her to learn how to swim from an instructor she didn't trust. Too late. Her mother was too far away to save her, and she still hadn't learned to swim to protect herself from drowning. She hated how her eyes started to close, and she thought she was in heaven when a pair of hands whisked her out of the water onto dry land. The person folded his hands and pressed her chest until she coughed up all the water she swallowed in the pull. He sat her up and patted her back as she coughed and regained consciousness. When she opened her eyes, she saw a man in a police uniform asking if she was okay. She nodded in response, and he carried her from the ground. He backed her and helped her back into the house. She directed him towards her unit, and they met Kelly and Jessica's mother in front of the house. The joy of seeing her mother almost made Jessica jump off the back of the police officer, but the weakness in her bones from the almost dying moment caused her to retreat. The man dropped her gently to the floor, and her mother ran towards her while the police officer ran to catch Kelly, who tried to run away. He held Kelly down and reported to Jessica's mother that Kelly was caught attempting murder. The man saw Kelly push Jessica into the pool while he patrolled the area. If he didn't rush to rescue her, Jessica could have died. Jessica could tell the fear in her mother's eyes and how she held onto her fingers with so much strength. She hugged Jessica and apologized multiple times for leaving her in the hands of someone like that. Jessica told her about all the other things Kelly did, the strangers she brought into the house, and the party she hosted right in the sitting room. She went further to tell her mother that Kelly had locked her up in the basement after she tried to record a video of the party. She went further to tell her mother that Kelly had locked her up in the basement after she tried to record a video of the party and report how things were in the house to her. Her mother held her tight and only apologized for being insensitive and trusting to someone who didn't deserve it. The police officer took Kelly away, and the nanny returned to the prison where she belonged, as the police officer reported to Jessica's mother some weeks later. Jessica hoped that she suffered many solitary confinement situations and never made it out of prison. Although her mother never hired anyone she didn't know ever again, Jessica didn't recover from the trauma of darkness. But she recovered from the trauma of water because her mother taught her to swim by herself. She almost died by water once, but that would never happen again.